All right. Good morning, everybody. It's your favorite host, Tim and Tim. We're back for another fun episode. And this time, I got Tim Vest with me. He's not on the road this week. And we're really excited about our guest, Sal Castaneda. He has been a guest before. I'll have to dig up on the video that we had done. I mean, we were just talking about this pre-show, but we've been doing this for about in May. It'll be 2 years. Sal was a guest on the show when he was kind of developing this brewery and this coffee shop that he owns, and he owns a lot of multifamily. And I know we've talked about some triple nut stuff over the years. So I wanted to bring Sal back onto the show to kind of talk about his experiences and what he's doing, and how he's pivoted and why he's changed. Because I really want to kind of showcase that you don't always have to be pigeonholed into one asset class or pigeonholed into whatever you're doing in your day-to-day life, whether it's a business, a W-2 job, or buying certain types of assets or whatever. So with no further ado, Sal, thanks for coming on again. Appreciate it. I really enjoy our conversations and the time that we get to talk. So why don't you just kind of bring everybody else up to speed of what's happened for you over the last 2 years or so, and then we'll kind of dive into the changes and the pivots that you've made recently.
Yeah. I appreciate being here with you guys because you guys are doing awesome.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, a little recap for some people. So 2014, I kind of had an awakening. I just felt like just wasn't really doing anything. Well, I was working and I had a plan. We had kids. My wife had a business, and we were doing good in life. Had a very little debt. Had some money saved up, but I just wasn't feeling good about where I was going or what I was doing. And I think a lot of it had to do with dreams being suppressed for when I was younger. I was always a really big dreamer, had all these dreams. My parents were always like, you're always in the clouds. I was like, oh, okay, so I got to suppress them. And then for a long time at my W-2 job, I would tell everybody I want to do this, I want to do that. I had a manager once ask me, it's like, what, are you a cartel member? Like, where are you coming up with money? And it's not that I had a lot of money. I just had a lot of thoughts and a lot of dreams. And so 2014, I was like, screw it. Every idea I have, I'm just going to do it. There was no structure to it, right?
Oh, that's
And
dangerous.
there was no structure. There was just like, I'm going to do. And I had like so many dreams that I wanted to get out. There's always been a consistent thing throughout my life once I started doing all these things. So I took a long time to get into real estate because I didn't even know I wanted to get into real estate. And kind of a segue into what I'm doing now, I always felt like I wish I had somebody to talk to about anything, whether I was going to get into real estate, whether I was going to start a business. I never had anybody that I could talk to and say, hey, if I do this, what's going to happen? Or how do I do this? And so a big driving factor for me was putting myself through the paces to be able to answer those questions for myself and then for my kids. So now when my kids want to start a business or want to get into real estate, I can at least say, well, I've gone through these roads and this is what I've learned. This is what I would do different. And so 2017, we saved a bunch of money, sold 70% of our stuff. I quit my job. My wife sold her business for a profit. So we went through that process of building a business and selling it for some money. And then we took one-way tickets to Guatemala with 4 kids. And then that's really when my journey began. And during that time is when I bought an apartment complex. Our first buy was a 44-plex and a triplex. And the triplex was just thrown in. So it was like kind of like an extra bonus. Anyways, fast forward through all of that, we ended up trying to find a new place to live. So we did a West Coast road trip, went to Guatemala, went to Mexico. I ran out of money. So when we bought our apartment complex, we were literally living in we couldn't move back into our house because we rented our house out. All our stuff was in storage. We're living at a campground because we're basically out of money, but we have all this money set aside to buy the apartment complex. So when we went to the attorney's office, everybody's all happy. We're like, yeah, we got all the kids, but we went back to the campground, So, anyway. But so then it just started kind of building up again, like started working, trying to make some more money. And then I got to a point where I had some money, and I thought, okay, now I'm going to buy another property. So I got into commercial property and turned it into triple net leases and sold it eventually. And then I just, one thing that I was always thinking about when I was growing up is I wanted to have a nightclub. I just thought it would be cool. I remember the nightclubs in San Francisco. But now I'm married. My wife's like, "Are you really gonna have a nightclub?" And I'm like, "I really want to, but maybe I don't need to." So
Mm-mm.
I had learned to start brewing, and I like craft coffee. And then I had this great idea. I was like, well, I thought it was a great idea. It's like, I'm gonna open up a coffee shop with a brewery that does breakfast sandwiches, and I'm gonna go for it. And so again, saved a bunch of money, bought a property, did all the build out, learned a lot of really hard lessons during this build out for the coffee shop, which we can talk about. And eventually it was too much for me. My health started going downhill. I was working two full-time jobs, 126 hours a week total with the coffee shop and my jobs. I wasn't sleeping. And then I love craft coffee, so I was drinking a ton of coffee. And then I love craft beer, so I was drinking a ton of beer. And then eventually not sleeping, not eating right, and just kind of being taxed all the time. I actually think my adrenals gave out or something gave out. And then I just like, I mean, I lost my mind really. People were coming in, and I'm like, I know you from somewhere. And I had just talked to them the day before. And so that's when I realized that I needed to change what I was doing, and I needed to reevaluate where we were at. And so from there is I started separating from the business a bit. And then eventually I looked at the business, and I thought, we've been in it for a year and a half talking to other. So then I started, so since I started a restaurant, I started becoming friends with other restaurant people and started gaining insight that I didn't know because I had never been in it. And so it seemed that I needed to do it for 3 years. And then it seemed like, man, the returns on a coffee shop brewery are just not that great. And so I decided, it's like, you know what? I can't do it for the long haul. I got to do something else. So we closed down the coffee shop, and we're in the process of trying to sell it again. So we had somebody to buy it. They kind of dragged us on a little bit and learned some lessons there. And now we're back to trying to either lease it out or sell it. I have two people that are interested for buying it and one person that's interested for leasing it. And I got to decide what's better for me right now. That's the
Yeah,
short.
I think the last time you were on this is when we were talking about the plans for the coffee shop and the brewery. And I remember you emailing me them and all this other kind of stuff. And you were super excited. And if I do recall, you were going to make an upside IPA. And I
Yep.
never received any of this upside IPA.
It's I still have the equipment, so don't discount it. It's still there.
I did home brewing myself for a while, and I saw your Facebook post of that, and I was like, I can make some serious beer with that setup.
Yeah, exactly. You could.
Well, cool, man. So, yeah, I mean, I love kind of the journey, right? Because I really just want to kind of emphasize how you can change your situation, right?
Right.
You can change your goals. You can change who you surround yourself with. And you're a perfect example of it. I mean, you've lost a significant amount of weight in the last, 6 months. I see you doing cold plunges and shoveling the driveway with no shirt on in the
Yep.
middle of winter.
Yep.
Like, I think you're an animal now. I mean, what is going on? Like, what happened? What was this mental switch that you wanted to start doing all of this stuff?
Well, one, I had to, right?
Hmm.
So I think that there's a saying that basically says nobody ever changes unless there's a really, they have their
Unless
own
you really
reason to
want to,
change.
you have to want to internally change first.
Right.
Nobody can
And
ever
so
change it for
I
you.
got to the point where I felt like I was gonna like I was really not good in a good state. My blood pressure was really uncontrollable. I was having like anxiety. You know what I kind of related to is, and I don't want to do this anymore. So here's a good lesson for everybody. I am willing to do the work. Like I'm willing to like if I was like a warrior, I'm willing to die on the stake, right? To like do because I feel like I can do it. My body can do it, I can do it. And that's not always the best way. I think it's better to be
Nope.
more calculated instead of willing to just push through all of the time because at some point something's going to give. So my health for forever I wanted to be healthy. I just kept telling myself this year I'm going to do it, this year I'm going to do it, and I would never do it. And so it just got to a point where I had to put myself first. Instead of putting everybody else first, putting the business first, putting the job first, I had to put myself first. And so I set up a system, and I get up before I start my day. I do all the stuff that I need to do. I have a default workout that I do. If I work out more, I can work out more. But yeah, I started, and then I had to learn about what foods are good for me or not good for me. So I actually went all the way in with health, and I got a blood test. I got a gene test, found out that I was deficient in these different things. Cold plunging actually helped to raise my testosterone, almost doubled it.
Mhm.
And so then I started taking peptides, I started taking all these supplements, and now I actually feel a lot better. I was to a point I couldn't even sleep. And I started
Wow.
the cold plunges not really for health, but because they would make me only think about breathing. And
Mm.
so it would help to like relax me a little bit
Yeah.
to actually move forward.
But man, I'll say this. Like, I know you're talking about being more calculated, but
Yeah.
I'll give you this. Like, I see what you tons of respect. I see what you did and tons of respect because, on the other side of the token, you see folks all the time who take no action. Like they're
Yeah.
over calculated, right? Like it's like you're calculating, you're waiting for that perfect moment,
Right.
that perfect window of opportunity, which any of us who've been doing this long enough know that never comes.
You
There's
have to
always
create those windows.
well,
Right.
but there's always, if you look, there's always a reason not to do something.
Oh
Always.
Always.
yeah. Oh
Oh
yeah.
God, yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
mean, I trust me. I'm in that same boat where I have put my business and my my newborn and my wife and everything else before myself, and I realize that, and it's definitely not the best thing to do. But I recognize it, but I haven't changed anything yet, and that's okay. I mean,
Yeah.
it'll
Yeah.
happen eventually, right? But like everyone's time will come whenever they are ready to do something,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
and you guys are still young too. I mean, you're not. I was actually good. I just like over the course of
How
like a
how old are
year.
you, buddy?
I'm 40. I'm what is it? So what are we? I'm 49. I'm gonna turn 49.
Ah,
oh, so we're not young. he's he's young.
we're young.
Okay,
You're
okay.
young. I am 49.
Oh,
So
so you look great though. So you must be exercising
Yeah,
then.
well, I was just
yeah,
about
but
to say,
I'm
Tim, do you do all the cold plunges and stuff?
no.
No, I thought you
Um
might.
no, I used to do ice baths when I was doing Ironmans, but that was for recovery. That wasn't for anything else. But no, I'd love to do the cold plunges. But Sal, I'm on the other side right now, man. Like
Okay.
I'm going through this phase where I'm like doing 14-hour days and like I'm feeling it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, man, this is like ringing true right now. Because right, like last week, I was I was joking with my daughter because last week I had a moment where like we went out to grab some food and she was driving, and on the way 5-minute drive way home I fell asleep in the car, and she's like,
Yeah. It
what's wrong
catches
with
up.
you? Yeah, man. She's like, what's
Oh
wrong
my
with you?
god.
So,
I
man,
re- I remember
you're
when
like
she
ringing a
first
bell with
started
me.
I remember when she first started driving and you were texting me like your blood pressure's through the roof and heart rate is about to explode because
Oh,
you anytime we go anywhere, just so you know, Vest drives all the time. He doesn't not
Oh.
drive. And I'm the same way, but I just let him do that for whatever reason. But and that's why it's so monumental that he's able to fall asleep in the passenger seat of his daughter driving when
Oh,
she just got her
exactly.
license, what, a month ago, maybe 2 months ago?
a month ago today.
Yeah, a month ago. Yeah, so that's saying something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Trust her.
yeah. So man, I feel you, man. I completely feel. But man, so much respect for what you did. I like what one thing I do love, and I don't recommend going out there without some sort of structure behind it.
Yeah.
But man, I what I do love is like you just saw it and you're like, I have an idea and I'm gonna go do it. Like I'm absolutely gonna go do it. But
Yeah.
what was it? What was it in your W-2 world, like when your job? What was it that kind of made you say, I don't like this. I'm gonna go do something on my own. I'm always curious
Um,
about that.
I've kind of had a my mind has changed a bit about that. It wasn't that I hated my job. It's that I used to have to sit all the time and I was expected to be at a place where I
Mm.
just have to be there. And it wasn't
Oh,
based on accomplishments, right?
yep. Just being
And I
present.
right, just being there. And some businesses, especially with with IT, they want you to automate stuff and get things so that they work better or get
Right.
things done faster. But then it's almost like they penalize you because now you don't have, like, hey, I automated my job. Like I always used to say with myself, I want to automate myself out of a job,
Yeah.
not because I don't want a job. I just want to automate it so that I can just chill. And then if something really goes to crap, I'm there because they they they, they need me more for my mind than they need me to like just do work because
Yeah.
I didn't work like in a line or something like that. And so it was more about dreams. I just felt like if I am old and I pass away and I never did this and I never did that, I'm just gonna kick myself in the head and like be like, why didn't you just do it? And so it really came down to that. It's like I just want to do it. Now, looking back, I actually okay, so here's something that's really interesting. From us taking time off and traveling, I felt that 3 weeks is probably a good amount of time for you to reset. So, do you need to quit your job while you're trying to build your other businesses? Probably not. Just take 3 weeks off. You'll feel great. 3 months is like the ultimate. And when we did all of this, I ended up coming back to the same company, and I talked to my manager and I say, hey, if I would have asked you for 3 months, because I felt like I wanted to know the answer, if I would have asked you for 3 months off, would you have given it to me? And he said, it would have sucked. I probably would have had to gone to fight for you with the company, but I would have done it. So then it was like, oh man, I could have just
And
taken 3 months off, had a guaranteed job back in case things didn't work out. Not that I needed it, but I could still come back. And now I'm to the mindset that if I would have made very calculated decisions, how I think you guys are making very calculated decisions, and bought real estate with the intention of fixing it up initially instead of through the long haul. And if I had systems in place and the right people in place instead of forcing myself to be the one that's doing all of these things, I could have kept my job. And my life would have been so much easier and I would have been so much more relaxed. And so I've kind of come around to that thinking. I think it's about being more calculated, having systems in place. I think it's really powerful to have people around you that are similar to you and help
yeah.
push you. And I think being around all of that is very important.
Yeah. So question for you. So, but you don't have a W-2 now, right?
I
Or
do.
you do? You
I
do?
do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you were when you were in that 15-hour day working two jobs or whatever, was there any part of you that was like, I'm just going to go back to a W-2. I'm never going to have anything on my own?
I was doing so when I first started the coffee shop. If I was to do it again, I would either be the worker or I would be the investor, but I wouldn't
Be
be
both.
all of them.
Yeah.
I was the brewer. I was the head barista. Like I was the one coming up with stuff. I was the head everything.
So it seems like is it fair to say that you maybe didn't calculate the true cost of running that business to hire those people to do it? Because
So,
if you were being the brewer instead
yep,
of hiring a master brewer, if
correct.
you were being the barista, if you were doing all of those things,
Right.
it seems as though the deal was too skinny, but you made
Yeah.
it work because you said I could do it instead.
I committed to working a full-time job for myself and the family and working another full-time job to support the business through those first couple of years for it to be profitable on its own. But when it really started to fall apart was right at the beginning.
Yeah.
When I went and got my loan, they basically the build out was going to be so much and I tried to minimize what the build out was going to be, not realizing that I couldn't go back and get the extra. It's almost better to pad your build out. I learned this the hard way
And not
Yeah.
use
and
it.
need less because then I had to come up with 20% for the property, 20% for the build out. And the difference of what the actual build out was another 70 grand. So
Right.
then
So
I
you
had to
got to
put
come with 100%
another
of that.
70 grand of my
Yeah.
own money into it. And then and then the coffee industry was okay. So the other lesson in it was I probably should have made my projections based on what the average is for the town that I was in to kind of calculate on the downside. but I
Mhm.
thought I could do better. So I
Mm.
calculated based on me doing better, and we did do better, but it was just not sustainable
Because of the effort.
because of the effort and because of the place that I was at. And then also, the town is like 7,000 people. It's not like it's the great location, and I wanted to do more craft stuff. Like I'm trying to be healthier. We're trying to do like good coffee, not bad coffee. We gave like all of our coffee was organic. I used like more expensive or oat milk that didn't have a bunch of preservatives, didn't have a bunch of crap in it. And most people nowadays they want crap.
Well, there's a
So
wave of change coming though, because my wife owned a business that she has shut down, selling like non-toxic, good
yeah,
products, right? Like eliminating plastics, getting everything organic. I mean, a good kind of a thumb on that is like you go to Costco now, you can get a ton of organic stuff at Costco.
yeah,
5 years ago, you couldn't find anything organic there, right?
right, right.
So that's kind of a good indicator of how the market and the consumer mindset is changing. But you got KYC, right? You got to know your customer, and
Yeah,
in a town of
yeah.
7,000 people. And remind me where you live again?
Eldridge, Iowa.
Iowa. I'm sure it's 7,000. Mostly farmers or blue collar, kind of not low income, but
No, they have
just blue
money
collar
here.
people, right?
Yeah, they have money here, but what I learned is that the
Oh,
people
okay.
that have money, they're
Yeah,
really particular about what they want, and they just do it at home. They have a
yeah, they have it
espresso
all.
machine at home.
Right, because in a town of 7,000 people, you're not known for going out to restaurants and going to this and going to
Right.
that like a metropolitan area is,
Correct.
where people will go buy and spend that kind of money. In a small town where everyone's house is on 5 to 10 acres, they're self-sufficient. They don't need to go
Right.
anywhere for anything.
Right. Right. Yeah. And
But
so
we couldn't survive without like Whole Foods grocery delivery. It's
right.
you guys probably don't have that out there.
No, I don't think they come all the way out here, to be honest.
Right.
And
Right.
then we have chickens too, like so we're getting our eggs from the house and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's a lot of lessons learned, and then here's another lesson too: is sometimes you feel like you're leveling up and you're around a different crowd, but it's still not the right crowd. And so that's what I felt too, with doing all the things that I was doing. Just
You were the big fish in the bowl at that point?
sometimes, but I think the beer industry for craft beer is really struggling in a lot of areas. And after
Super
COVID and
saturated.
all that stuff, it's worse. The restaurant industry, eggs, for example, I used to be able to get 15 dozen eggs for 20, 25 bucks. It went all the way up to 100 and some bucks, and it would
Yeah.
fluctuate. And so we started buying organic eggs just because that's what we wanted to do. And now it made sense at that price point.
Mhm.
And so it's just too much volatility.
Yeah. And then if you change your prices on your sandwiches and stuff, people lose
Oh
their
man,
mind.
everybody complains. And so
Oh, yeah.
if I'm trying to be around people that are more positive, I mean, there was great customers, and I met a lot of people that I like, and I still keep in touch with. I became a part of the community, but man, there's a lot of people that complain, and so it was just not for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we got a question here. Let's get back to this one for a second. Where was your 44 unit apartment community?
In Davenport, Iowa.
Okay.
How far is that from you?
It's only like, I don't know, 7 miles from my
very
house
close
to the
then.
apartment complex.
You still
Gotcha.
have it?
Yeah, I still have it.
How's it doing?
It's done good for me. The issue that's here in the Quad Cities is management is hard. It's hard to find good management companies, and some of them that are good, we've had experiences where they have their own portfolio, so they're, kind of a little bit busy. But
they're focusing
management
on their
here
own
is
stuff, not
an
yours.
issue.
They're
So
focusing on their own stuff, not yours.
so
Yeah.
so I can tell you from being connected to folks all over the country, that's not an Iowa. That's not unique to Iowa. We're in some bigger metro areas, and it's a problem here too. And we're hearing it all over the place.
I'm planning on making some changes so that I can have more control over it. It's kind of difficult. Everybody says you should look at all your numbers, keep track of where you're at, but it's kind of hard to look at your numbers and then get more pissed off and then yell at someone and then they don't care. So then you're like, what am I looking at the numbers?
No kidding, man. You're preaching, man. Like there's a deal we have. I won't say too much about it. There's a deal we have, and there was some complaint about the financials, the transparency on the financials, and then we finally got transparent financials. I was like, cool. Now I can really see how bad it sucks. I'm like, that's
yeah. It's like, what's going on? Can I get a
Yeah.
report? I'm like, oh, it's coming. I'm like, man, we're
Yeah,
doing stuff so wrong. But anyways, the management situation for us is somewhat fixed right now. I don't particularly like what we're doing, but it's doing a lot better than what it was. And that's been our wave here in the Quad Cities for me.
Mhm.
The apartment complex has done great, then it hasn't done great, and then it's done great, and then it hasn't done great. And all those correlate back to the management company, whether they were paying attention or
yeah.
happy with their own life, or if they were going through their own personal issues, and then it goes down. But we have been steadily moving better, but it's gone up like this,
Yeah.
Well,
Success isn't, direct linear.
Well,
Right.
and that it's good and bad, right? Like the
Mhm.
worst management company is the one that you talk to and you're like, hey, I noticed this trend, and that trend just continues, right? Like they do
Right.
nothing about it. I mean, it sounds like at least when you go to them, they're reacting. Um,
Well, we've
but
switched too. We switched 3 times.
oh,
Oh
okay.
God.
Missed that part. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So here I'm going to pose the question: is when are you going to refinance that 44 unit, go buy another 50 unit, and then just have one manager that works for you manage both properties?
My plan. So we had a buyer. So we put out the property for sale, and we actually
Okay.
had a buyer. And the day we were supposed to sign, my partner and I, because I own it with one partner, we both decided that we didn't want to get out of it at this point because it's making us money, and we just couldn't do it. So we agreed that we would buy each other out.
How do
So
you buy
he
each
buys
other out
me
at the
out or
same
I buy
time?
him out. And
Oh,
so my goal, my plan is to find something more calculated, kind of like what I imagine you guys are doing. It's like very calculated, making the fixes up front, kind of getting it going a little bit better, and then moving my money there is what
mhm.
my plan is.
so
So
you're gonna let him buy you out.
Yeah. And
yeah,
he's been doing it for 30 years. He
He's cool with it.
actually
it's
he
better
has
for you.
he's got a
Ultimately, it's better
1031.
for you to get your cash out and move it. And
Yeah.
I have a lot of conversations with investors. One, because of this show, we talk openly about the velocity of money, what our mindset is, how we want to buy and add value and move on to the next deal and continue to cycle and recycle money. And I have a lot of conversations with investors talking about the velocity of money and showing them how it's important to realize capital gains and reinvest your new equity
Yeah.
basis into a new deal. What am I ultimately talking about is my return on equity. And if you're
Yeah.
not looking at your return on equity, then that's where most people fall short, because you'd be surprised how many people are getting 1, 2, 3% ROE. And they're like, but my cash on cash return or my ROI is 30% per year. I'm like, yeah, but so you put 100 grand in, you're making 30,000, but you got $1 million worth of equity here and you're
Yeah.
making 30 grand. Like
Right.
all you can liquidate that $1 million and put it into a high yield savings account at 5.5% and make more money and literally do nothing.
Right.
And then I'm telling you, people's minds explode. Right.
Yeah.
And that is why, for our own portfolio, like every quarter, every year end, I'm looking at Tim and I's ROE on our properties, ignoring what my cash investment is, because that is not the metric that's going to make you rich or wealthy or
Right.
move the needle. Right.
Correct.
And when I start getting on a roll about this, because I get super passionate and super excited about it, because that is how we've been able to do what we do, is because we're constantly moving money. And yes, you will make money in the long run, and buying and holding assets will make you wealthy in the long run. But I want to be rich today. I don't want to
Yeah.
be rich when I'm 50.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
Yeah,
I gotta hurry up. I got like a
but
year.
I got to hurry
really,
up.
but the other side of that too, though, is like, I mean, what's rich, right? Like what's
Yeah.
wealthy, what's rich? Because
Sure.
you're right. You can go like your
There's a
44
level of
unit.
risk and stress that comes with it. So
Your
Yeah.
44 unit, you can absolutely just sit on that and it will appreciate over time, right?
Yeah, and it
But
does. And
but
it
why
helps
not?
me.
But not why not leverage the property, right? Like if you have
Right.
equity in it, tap some of that equity and go buy another one, right? Or
Right.
sell it, pull that equity out and go get something bigger. I think that's what's lost in a lot of people when they're talking about buying and holding assets. I've not run into too many guys that have been successful in this long term that have not either pulled their equity and bought a bigger asset or refinanced their property to tap equity and add assets to that, right? They build a portfolio, right? And you know, I think that's what's lost sometimes when folks are like, I'm just doing buy and hold. You know, I think Bill Hamill says it really well. He's a buy and hold guy, but he's a collector of real estate. Like he collects real estate, right? But he doesn't just buy and sit on it.
Right.
He's utilizing it, right?
Yeah. He refinances it, puts equity lines on it. And ultimately, everything that we're saying comes back to analyzing your ROE. Because as soon as you realize that your ROE is not 8 to 10% or better, you know, I mean, that's at least what I go by. And some people might be 5 to 7% or whatever. When you start to trickle down into that low percentage range, that's when you need to do a refinance or some kind of liquidation event, whether that's a refi, a HELOC, or a sale or 1031 exchange or whatever, and tap into that equity and go put it back to work. Because money that's only making 3 to 5% ROE is lazy money, and you can do way better. I mean, for instance, most of our deals have a 7 to 8% preferred return, right? So to me, that's my minimum access to investment. So if my ROE is touching or getting close to 7 to 8%, I'm looking at liquidating, getting access to that capital, redeploying it into another deal that I know I'm going to get at least a 7 or 8% return, plus the equity upside where it's going to make 15, 20, 25% per year annually, right? So I'm looking at that stuff constantly, moving money. And those are those calculated risks that you're talking about, or calculated decisions that we're talking about, is constantly looking at that metric and having somewhere to put the money.
And actually looking at it, I don't think a lot of people don't look at that metric.
No, but not a lot of people do.
Right. And so I've looked at that metric, but I didn't put so much emphasis in it because I wasn't sure where I was going to end up in the investor line. You know, am I going to be flipping stuff, or am I going to be holding it for long? And I've come to the conclusion, because I actually went back and analyzed all of the deals that I've done and what I could have done better and what that number difference would have been, and how could I have gotten that difference sooner. And it all comes back to everything you guys are saying.
Right. So we're running out of time here. Sal, what's kind of your closing statement here that you want to leave an impact on people for?
So I actually so I've been doing this before I started doing anything. One thing that I've always enjoyed doing is helping other people out. I want to talk with people, put ideas into people. It's something that I did at the coffee shop. I had this one guy come in and say, you know, he was in his 20s. He was like, 10, 15 years from now, I have a plan to do this and I have a plan to do that. And I'm like, why are you going to wait? So I just started asking him a bunch of questions, right?
Yeah, just ask questions.
I started putting stuff in his head, and I forgot about it. And 6 months later, he came in and gave me a card, and he was like, hey, I just want to say thank you, because all the stuff that we talked about, I quit what I was doing. Now I started a YouTube channel doing all the stuff that I love to do. And that led me to get another job, to end up getting a job doing the stuff that I love to do. Nice. And all the stuff that he was going to wait to do 10, 15 years from now, he's doing it all right now. And his life is a lot better. And so what I did is I started a coaching program. It's I got a website called mycoachsal.com. And so I'm doing that now, helping people to stay accountable to their dreams and their goals, helping them make better decisions, connecting them with people that can help them do what they need to do faster and sooner and be more calculated. And creating my own community.
I wish I would have found you at 23, man. I really
yeah. Yeah, I wish I would have found me at 23.
You know, I think ultimately, as coaches ourselves, we become coaches because we are the people we wish we had found sooner, right? And that's how you make an impact on somebody's life. And I say it all the time is we do this. And if I can make an impact in somebody's life and change the trajectory of their life, even if it's one person in my entire life, it's a life fulfilled. Right?
Yeah, I agree.
So utilizing social media and tools like this in order to reach more people than one-on-one, it just increases the opportunity that you have to make an impact on somebody's life. And I think that if you're not doing that, then you're doing the community a disservice, because you are valuable and you have information and experiences that other people need to hear so that they can do things differently that you maybe have already done.
Right. Yeah. And I think everybody has value. They just need to realize it.
Totally.
It's longer for some people to realize it.
Yeah. So, all right, Sal. Well, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Always a pleasure chatting with you, and good luck with the coaching program and the hopeful sale or releasing of your asset.
Yep.
And let's talk. We got some deals.
Yeah, I'm gonna see you guys around. I'm coming your way. My wife
Right.
wants to do.
I know we've chatted already. So, all right, man.
All right,
Thanks
Sal.
so much.
Take care,
Appreciate
buddy.
you guys. Thank
Bye.
you.